Hey guys, we're back with the Screen Team, and we're being joined right now by Mr. Jeff South, and we're getting ready to review one of Jeff's all-time favorite films. If you follow Jeff on his blog, he loves this movie. It's called Unforgiven, back from 1992, and if you're not familiar with it, a retired Old West gunslinger, William Money, played by Mr. Clint Eastwood, he takes on one last job with the help of an old partner and a young, cocky man. Movie's Unforgiven, won Best Picture. Great Western. Let's talk with Jeff right now. Jeff, what is it about this film that speaks to you? Why is this one of your all-time favorite movies?
Well, I think for me, and first of all, thanks for asking me to talk about this movie, because I all three of these movies that we're going to talk about, I love. But this one I especially love because I grew up watching Westerns with my dad, because that's like all he ever wanted to watch, right? His steady diet of Bonanza and Gunsmoke and old John Wayne pictures,
Yeah.
And as a young kid, I leaned more towards sci-fi, so I didn't quite get the whole Western thing, right? And I got a little burned out on it. But I appreciated it, but it wasn't my thing. But there were a couple of movies that came out in the 80s that were Westerns. One was Silverado, which was good and fun and entertaining, and the other one was another Clint Eastwood picture, Pale Rider, that I really liked. So when I came in to see Unforgiven, and I saw it in Poplar, Bluff the weekend it opened at the old Mansion Mall Cinema, to date myself, I wanted to see another Clint Eastwood Western, and he directed it, and I was starting to admire him as a director and the work he was doing. And this kind of launched into a major period of great work by him. And I just thought it was really compelling the way he, as a Western icon, with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Fistful of Dollars and Outlaw Josie Wales and all those others, the way he just deconstructed the myth of the Western gunslinger and what it meant to, there's a very romanticized notion about it all, rightly so.
Yeah. And
here's this guy who was if you think of Westerns, you think of John Wayne and you think of Clint Eastwood. And here's this guy who was a symbol of this type of picture, and he basically turns it on its end and looks at it through a different lens that says, this guy, this gunslinger, this, bounty hunter, he's going after the bad guys, right? Because the plot is they're going to collect the bounty on some men who cut up a prostitute. And normally in these movies, the sheriff is the good guy, and he stands for law and order in a Western frontier town. And guys like Clint Eastwood's bounty hunter aren't always viewed with open arms. And Eastwood's character has a very bad reputation. He's kind of a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
He doesn't appear to have a conscience. That's his legend. He's supposedly changed when we meet him at the beginning of the movie. And then, things happen over the course of the film that change him. And it's whether or not, is he going to fall back into that old cold-blooded killer mentality that in a way has been sort of romanticized in other pictures. And then the other thing that intrigued me about it is, the sheriff of the town, Little Bill, played by Gene Hackman, and I think he won an Academy Award for that part.
Yep.
He's just as morally ambiguous as Clint Eastwood's Will Money. He rules with an iron fist, and all in the name of, I'm going to keep law and order in my town, even if it means, being basically a brutal dictator. So just the fascination that it plays with the lines between good and evil that were always so clear in a lot of traditional Westerns, they really get kind of brushed aside, and it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The first time I watched this film, I was a younger kid. I didn't really understand it well. I just, I watched it and I was like, okay, this is just a boring, Western film, and Clint Eastwood's the hero and Gene Hackman's the bad guy, and not really understanding the deeper depths of each of those characters. And I watched it again several years after that, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit better than I thought. And watching it again for this review for the third time, I really kind of see, how special this film is. It's really surprising, because, the first time I watched this film, I thought Clint Eastwood was the hero. And then when you kind of watch it again, you see it through different from a different angle, I guess. You see him, yeah, he's a hero in parts, but in other parts he's a bad dude. Do you feel that way when you watch it? Do you see Clint Eastwood as a hero in this film, or do you see him as having a lot of different layers to him?
When I first saw the movie, I was probably 25, 26, and I had been living away from Poplar, Bluff for a few years. And my wife and I at the time had returned to Poplar Bluff, and so this was a date night, right? We're going to go see the new Clint Eastwood movie, and it's a Western, and it'll be fun, right? And so all I had known of Clint Eastwood was, originally it was he's the hero, he's always the good guy, but I had also remembered Dirty Harry and Magnum Force and Deadpool and those, Sudden Impact, those kind of movies, and he's very much an anti-hero. I had learned, thanks to my graduate school degree in theater and spending time, analyzing characters and whatnot. And, I felt very intellectual going to see the movie. He was an anti-hero. He's not the traditional good guy. He's got some rough edges, and he can take the law into his own hands from time to time. So when I walked into Unforgiven, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But as the movie unfolded, I was like, this is a man trying to get away from the notion that killing people is a good thing, regardless of the reason.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the first meditations I can remember viewing on the concept of the good guy with the gun who's going to go take care of the bad guys. And this particular good guy with a gun is not really a good guy. And so we're seeing this movie, and as we get to the end, and the picture, Eastwood shows up at the bar or the saloon there, and everybody in town is in there, including Little Bill, and he's come for Little Bill. He's come for Gene Hackman's character. He's going to kill him. Clint Eastwood gives the warning, any men that don't want to get shot, best clear on out the back. And there's kind of a nice comic moment where a bunch of men leave. A couple other people decide they're going to be brave, and they reach for their guns, and they get blown away. And it just leads to this symphony of violence, at the end, where he just starts blowing people away. And the movie ends with him just walking. Westerns have that cliche ending of the hero riding off into the sunset, right?
Sure.
This one is Clint Eastwood walking off into the dark rain, shooting his gun, and killing people. And it was funny because when we were in the movie, when we were watching it, my wife and I were sitting there horrified. We were sad because it was like, here was a character who had been seeking redemption the whole picture, and doesn't get it. But at the end of this movie, with the crowd that we were seeing there, there were people cheering him. They were like, "Yeah, get him, Clint, get him, Clint." I'm like, I don't think you got it. Not to be judgy, but I'm like, I think you missed the point on that one. He's not the good guy. I felt bad for him. I sympathized for him because here was somebody, like I said, seeking redemption, but he doesn't get it, and that's kind of the point. And that was hard to watch, but it was also kind of exhilarating to watch because here was Clint Eastwood taking that mythological character that he had kind of created as an icon in Westerns, and he kind of turned it on its ear. And he was asking us, is this who you idolize? Is this the kind of Western character you idolize? And it still fascinates me.
Man,
to this day.
We're getting deep, Jeff. We're getting deep. I love it.
I love it, man. That's why when you pick these movies, I was like, sign me up.
Unforgiven won Best Picture, won Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Mr. Gene Hackman. Clint Eastwood won Best Director, won Best Film Editing. Did Clint, he won for Best Leading Actor too, didn't he?
I don't know if he won. I'd have to go back and look. I know he was nominated.
Okay.
And I know that was the year Denzel Washington was nominated for Malcolm X, but Denzel didn't win. But I can't remember if he lost to Eastwood or somebody else.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look.
So basically, this film is just chock full of awards and praise. Mm-hmm. I'm going to turn it on the flip side for you, Jeff. Is there anything in this movie that you don't like? Are there some things that you're like, oh, I wish that would have done better, or is this a perfect movie to you?
It's not a perfect movie. I don't know that I could say that. I think it's one of the very best movies, not only that I've ever seen, but I think it's one of the very best movies that have been made, and I think it's the best Western that's ever been made. I do think it's a little problematic, but I think it's something that all Westerns have struggled with is what do they do with the women characters? Mm-hmm. All the women characters in this movie they're prostitutes, they're strong, and Frances Fisher, who plays the madam of the group, she's got a good role, but I felt like that got a little minimized, and it would have liked to have seen a little more done with that. But there's still some nice moments. But I felt like that was an area that was a little problematic, and that just might be me, somebody viewing it through a 21st century lens,
sure.
In today's environment versus then. I probably didn't think much about it then, but I just watched the movie, I'd say just a few months ago with my son. We sat down and had a Clint Eastwood mini film festival, and that was one thing that kind of stood out to me when we watched it again, was the way they handled the female characters. But all in all, I mean, it's just a really fine American movie, and I would send everybody out to go watch it, stream it, rent it, get your hands on it if you've never seen it, and watch it. And if you have watched it and you haven't watched it in a long, long time, you should go back to it and see how it impacts you.
All right, you heard the man. The movie's called Unforgiven, and like Jeff said, you can rent it, you can stream it, you can buy it, you can borrow it from a friend, whatever you got to do, check it out. It's Unforgiven, and we've got more reviews coming your way, and remember, we want you to know before you go.